Okay, now you can go. Thanks.
Wonderful. Good evening and welcome to the January meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission. India, our chair, is traveling this month, so I am filling in for her. To start the meeting, first we'd like to call the meeting to order and take roll. All right, Ward 1 is empty right now because we've lost Brianna. So Ward 2, Jeff McCrease.
Present.
Ward 3, Enid Collison-Lee.
I'm here.
Hi, Enid. Ward 4, Kayla Golder.
Here.
Ward 5 is India, and she is not here. Ward 6 is vacant. We are waiting for Corey to be sworn in, and Corey is here this evening. Corey? Ward 7 is me. Ward 8 is Jessica Packler.
I'm here.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Corey.
Corey.
And I'm here too.
All right. At large A, Odessa Ellis. Okay.
I'm
At
here.
large.
Good evening.
Oh, there you are. Welcome, Odessa. At large B, Grace Matthews.
Grace is ill. She told me to tell everybody she sends her regards, but she's not feeling well.
Hope she feels better. Thank you, Odessa.
Uh-huh.
At large C, Janet Norman.
I'm here.
At large D, Ken Starks. Alderwoman Sheila Finlayson.
Present.
Pam, our non-sworn member, Pam Bukowski,
Here.
is also our secretary. And then we also have for Ward 2, we have Jamie Weaver, who is also not sworn in yet, but has an application in the process. So hopefully we will have close to a full roll within the next month or so. So thank you. So welcome, everyone.
Laura, excuse me, did you say that Jamie Weaver was present, though?
I'm sorry?
Yes,
Did
I'm
you-
here.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so first we have the agenda for this evening. We already had one suggestion. Dr. Tobin is here this evening. Hello, Dr. Tobin. Sorry, I should have mentioned you in the roll call. She has to leave early, so one of the items on our unfinished business was the new superintendent search. So we're going to move that up under Dr. Tobin and let her address that because most of our questions were aimed at her. So we'll move that up there. Does anyone else have any other changes to the agenda? Right. Does anyone have any objections to approving the agenda as amended?
I motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay. All right. According to India, we do not need, if there are no objections, we do not need to vote. So we're not going to do a roll call on that one. Next, approval of the minutes from last month. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes that Pam took? Thank you, Pam.
I just wanted to get a correction in the spelling of my name. That's it.
Oops.
Oh, I'm sorry, Enid. I should know. I will make that correction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other changes or corrections? No? All right. All right. So any objections to approving the minutes as amended? All right. All right. I don't think, do we have anyone for public testimony this evening? I don't think we do. All right. So scurrying right along so that we have as much time with Dr. Tobin as possible. Joanna, I turn it over to you for an update from the Board of Ed.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, as always, for inviting me. So obviously, as always, there's a lot going on, but I know that the status of the superintendent search is top of mind for many people. So I will start with that. We have a search committee, which, let me be clear, is not the committee that chooses the superintendent. It is the committee that oversees the process. So That committee consists of Ms. Ellis, Ms. Dent, Ms. Scholheim, and Ms. Frank. Ms. Frank is chairing it. We have the first piece of business that has occurred is the request for proposal for a search consultant has been put up. So you can find that and you can read the RFP should you wish to do so. If you go to aacps.org/purchasing, when you get to that page, hit the button on the left side that says bid information. Go to the button on the right that says current bid solicitations. A page will come up with a kind of a chart further down. If the second one currently on the list, you'll see it says consulting services executive search for superintendent. There's a button view documents, and you can actually see the RFP. That close date on that, the due date for that is February 17th. So proposals will be in on the 17th. We'll have a few weeks to review, make a decision. We will know a whole lot more, obviously, about the time frame and the process once we have our consultant hired. So that's where we are in the process right now. It's a very standard process. This is what boards of education do. And so that's where we are with that. There have been a lot of questions from people saying, when can the public have input? There will be town halls. There will be various ways for people to ask questions, have input, and so on. But the specifics of that, we're not going to know until we have hired our consultant, which is the first part of the puzzle. So that's in a nutshell where we are. Any questions about that before I move on to anything else that folks have? Laura, I'll let you call on people since you're.
All right, Sheila. You're on mute, Sheila.
Thank you. Joanne, I've been asked by several about the process as far as the community participation is concerned. And I know that there is a plan to have what is tantamount to public hearings, and that's not the correct description,
right,
but public participation.
Right.
But as far as the panel who will narrow the 10 choices down to 3 choices, will there be community leaders in any capacity as part of that committee?
I can't give an exact answer to that now. My yes in some sense, but I don't know the precise procedures we're going to take on, and that will have to do to some extent with our discussions with our consultant. And so I don't want to give out any information that I don't know precisely. There will absolutely be community input. There will be a whole host of ways to do it. How we're going to deal with, if we get to 3 finalists and then we have public meetings, that's, I think, what was done last time. The likelihood we will follow that procedure, but I don't know that 100% if the numbers will be the same, if any of that. So I don't want to commit to a specific thing and then have people say, but you said this and now you're doing this. I can simply say that absolutely that will be part of the process that we lay out. And I'm hopeful probably in a couple of weeks, we'll have some initial public communication about where we are, and we'll keep sort of updating the public as we move forward in this. But that's, we're kind of at this moment right now where we just haven't laid out the pieces of it yet. So I don't have a specific answer to your question right now, but there will absolutely be a structure for that. So
I think part of the concern has been how far down into the process will the community be brought in?
Right.
And as you all are giving guidelines to the consultant, that piece should be considered.
No, I think it's fair to say that the board recognizes generally and supports the idea that obviously people, we want input. We want people to feel comfortable that we don't suddenly get to sort of the end, what looks like almost the end of the process. And people are like, wait a minute, nobody had a say in this. But as I said, just what exactly that's going to look like, I don't know. But I think that is certainly very much in people's minds. And I think it's safe to say it's what we're hearing from constituents all over the county, that, this is obviously very, very important to people. And we want to make it as transparent and accessible as possible, because we want whoever we hire to be set up to succeed. And that's one of the most important ways to do that. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Janet, you had your hand up, and then we'll go to Odessa.
Yes, please. Couple questions.
Mhm.
Who is it exactly that narrows the whole field of candidates down to a top 3 choices? Is that the search committee?
Yeah. And that we haven't set that up yet. We don't know that yet. Because that, again, part of what we do is we work with our search consultant. One of the things we do is we interview search consultants to sort of look at what their different suggestions are and if that meshes with what we want to do and so forth. So.
Okay. Second question is, does your search consultant help you shape the compensation package? And is the previous compensation package for Dr. Arlotto readily available online? One of the things I think we need to do within Anne Arundel County is kind of rebuild the trust, the taxpayers, that, we're above board. I know when ACPS paid for Dr. Maxwell's sick leave from Montgomery County for $250,000.
Right.
It created a little bad blood.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you all want to be transparent and we want to set this person up to succeed. But we're going to need more transparency than AACPS is used to. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, so we, as in all things, of course, we are guided by employment law. So we have to, those are parameters we have to work within. That being said, we also take guidance. I mean, one of the reasons for having a search firm is they know what the market looks like, right? They know exactly what a system of this size with this kind of structure should be paying, right? I believe, certainly the contracts are mostly available. I mean, Dr. Arlotto's contract has been a publicly available document. And I think it's fair to say, again, I think I'm representing pretty fairly what the board sees as transparency as essentially a top priority here, because we know, success, whoever we hire, we want to set up to succeed. And so setting up in a situation where anybody feels somehow that information has not been forthcoming is not a good way to set anybody up. And so that's again, one of those things we're going to be going through as we evaluate which search firm we want to look at. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Odessa?
Yes, hi. I thought I read somewhere, I got some kind of transmission from somewhere that said that the selection had been narrowed down to 3 people and it had Maureen McMahon and 2 other people. Did anybody see anything like that?
No. I can tell you, Ms. Ellis.
That was from last time, though. Wasn't it last time when Maureen McMahon and Dr. Arlotto and other people were in the running?
I think there was perhaps an old article that was circulated or something from the previous search. But there's been no narrowing down of anyone at this point. So that's not where we are. So
okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Jess?
I was just wondering, I mean, I know it was a board decision to not renew the contract. Does the board have a general given that the conversations that you must have had based around not renewing his contract, do you have a general idea of what you're looking for? I mean, I know there's, I don't know if that's mine. Or,
Yeah.
So I mean, I know you're having the consultant come in and all that, but does the board right now, do you all have a general idea of what it is that you're looking for, or, any set goals
I
that
think
you're going to give to the consultant?
At this juncture, that's not yet specifically a part of the conversation. What has been said thus far, and I think is fair, is we want a national search. We want to make sure that we are actually looking as broadly as possible for who's out there, right? Who's, this is a very interesting time in education, for lack of a better word. A lot of things have happened. There have been a lot of transitions. I think everybody's goal, as best we can, is to hang on to whatever good came out of COVID and not lose that. And on the other hand, not continue with the things that haven't been so successful through COVID. And so obviously we're looking for someone who's prepared to take that on. And we're also looking for someone coming into this, if it's someone coming from out of the state, who is prepared and enthusiastic about taking on Blueprint for Maryland, which has a huge number of potentially really transformative aspects, but is also unbelievably complex and is a massive piece of legislation, which, as happens when something like that's put together, once you get into the implementation phase, there are things that come up that you're going to have to work through, sort of potholes in the road, if you will. And that's a complex piece of leadership to handle. And so I think, those are the kind of conditions that we're in right now. And therefore, we're looking for someone who will meet those conditions. And as I said, more broadly, a very transformational time right now in education, that things have been shaken up, probably will need to continue to be shaken up, whether we want that or not. And we're also going to be coming through, even with the up and down with enrollment through COVID, we're still projected to gain 8,000 students over the next decade. We gained 10,000 in the last decade. This is a big system. It's a growing system. Managing that is a lot of work. We have a massive, as most of you know, we have a massive backlog in both construction and maintenance. Yay, Hillsmere, is on its way to get the new Hillsmere Elementary, but nonetheless, there's a lot of stuff backed up. And we're also at a time, our state superintendent is a very different kind of superintendent than we had previously. So we also want somebody, who can work well in that environment. So I think, I don't think things are set in stone at this point, because we haven't really begun the process of even the process, right? How it's going to look. But I think those are the sort of essential conditions that a good candidate is going to have to be working within, and I think are some of the aspects that we're going to be examining as we narrow down good applicants. So I don't know if that exactly gets to your question, Jess, but
it does. And I just want to thank you for all of that. And I hope that also within that is, obviously different parts of the county have different priorities.
Right.
And obviously the Annapolis cluster has very different needs and priorities than a lot of the rest of the county. So I hope that that is something that really, that That
Yeah,
there is a focus on somebody who understands urban school districts,
Yeah.
not just suburban school districts.
yeah, and I think that's a really important point, and thank you for reminding me about that, because that is one of the really complicated parts about this county, right? You really have every possible, you have rural, you have suburban, and you have urban. And you really need somebody who can function and fully understands the implications and the needs of all of those different groups. And so, that's an ongoing part of it. And, so I think, the good news is this is a very attractive state to work in as a superintendent, and this is a very attractive county to work in as a superintendent. So that's the good news. But we well know it's a very complex place to function in. So, those are the things we're going to have to balance.
Janet?
Yes, if you can clarify for me, Dr. Tobin. So I know the Board of Ed has the role of oversight, and you have the role of hiring and renewing or not renewing the superintendent's contract. How is accountability year to year determined? Like, what metrics does the superintendent have to reach? So I, as a federal employee, have very specific metrics and performance criteria that I have to reach for different levels. And it's all laid out for the year. And my supervisor can measure me on those accomplishments. How do we do this and have accountability for our superintendent? What accountability measures are there for our superintendent?
We have, just like all employees and employers are probably familiar with, we have a set of goals that are put together in concert between the superintendent and the board. There is a point in the year where those are reviewed. And we have a conversation about it, and either, factor that into writing the next year's goals, do all the things that you are all used to doing, I'm sure, with your employers and employees. So it's the same process. That's what the board does.
Okay, is that ever published? Is that dialogue?
Well, it's somebody's performance review, right? So as I said,
Right.
we are.
So I, like, as a federal employee, my performance review is there numerically for whoever.
But it's not something public in the sense that for yours, it's one thing for yours to be available within your within the government, right?
Yeah.
It's another for anybody. And now I'm not an attorney, but employment law is part of what we are functioning within.
Right.
Somebody is entitled to the privacy of their job review, their performance review. And so that is not something that's, published, shall we say.
Okay, I'm just wondering how the measurement against goals. You have goals, and hopefully they are.
And that's what we do.
Measurable goals.
Yeah.
And then there's very specific.
Yes.
To
Yes.
measurable goals.
That is what we do. Yeah. So. And that's, a critical part of our job, right?
Right.
So.
And so is that continuing? So, you've informed the superintendent.
Oh, yeah.
Contract.
Yeah,
so month to month, if we still have, prismatic transportation report implementation, how
we have,
being held each month for.
We have, as all employees do, we have an annual review, right? But the fact is, if you're doing it well, there should be conversations all the way through, right? Why is this not working? Why is this not working? Or is this working? This is working. And, and it's a conversation, right?
Right.
The person who's executing the work can say, look, this is just not something that we're going to be able to do. And that's a point where the employer and the employee may have a different view of that, right? But that is what we do. And that's what all employers do. And, that's our job. So,
Okay. Does this happen on a monthly basis of, when they're presenting to you an update of?
well, Janet, I can't tell you that there's a monthly performance review. There's an annual performance review, and there are
Right.
conversations throughout the year, which in my experience as a supervisor is what I did with employees. It's you have that conversation knowing that there's an annual review where certain goals are supposed to be met, right? And so you want to have those conversations along the way if you're being a good supervisor, because you don't want the
Right.
person to suddenly get there and just say,
"Oh, I didn't do it." Yeah.
but it's not, it's not like the 15th of every month we sit down and look at because different things are popping on any given
Right.
month.
But it could be if
Well-
that was written into the contract.
Right.
I mean, it could
And
be
so
that way.
maybe, right, as you're rethinking this position and how you want to do it, maybe rethinking periodic check-ins and conversations. And if
Oh, yeah.
someone is saying, no, I kind of want to veer off in this implementation measure instead, that it doesn't,
Yeah.
and then that's checked in more frequently.
And we have, trust me, those conversations are continuing. But I think, again, we're looking at, what the market is, how superintendents function. And you're always weighing, on the one hand, accountability, which is absolutely critical. On the other, giving people the room to do the job and show where the progress is, and not have the accountability be so sort of,
Micromanage. You don't want micromanagement, right?
you don't want to micromanage, right? That's not, the last thing you want to do is have somebody in charge of a system this big
Right.
and not give them the scope to do the job. So that's a,
Yeah,
that's always,
it is a balance.
it is a balance. It is a balance. Yeah. But accountability is critical, and nobody should come into this job, in my view, and I don't think I'm alone in this, not understanding that, that's an essential part of this. It's a public position. It's a hugely important and critical position. And nobody becomes a superintendent, certainly not with a system this big, without realizing people are paying attention and they're watching and they're expecting results. And if things aren't working, they want to know why and what's going to be done. So.
Sheila, you have your hand up?
I do. Joanna, you outlined, or you, I think, guided us to where to find the RFP, and I have
Right.
been trying to search. Could you put that in the chat or someplace? Because
Yeah.
I can't find it.
I know it's, you
Maybe-
have,
Email
Yeah.
it to us after the meeting.
you have to go to, here it is. Yeah, you have to go specifically to the purchasing page. And I will email you, I will send you the link to that page.
Okay.
Because that's the part that people have a hard time finding, I think, is once you're on that page, it's fairly self-explanatory, but it's not a page that you easily get to just from the ACPS home.
Could you
Page.
request to communications
That's
to
what
have that more
I was just-
transparently available?
So I was trying to go through procurement, but it's. the
Yeah,
purchasing page.
it's
Okay.
vendors and contractors purchasing, and it's just acps.org // purchasing.
Okay,
But I will email the link.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any more questions in relation to the superintendent search? I know you have to leave, Joanna, but we have a couple minutes. So if folks have questions about, I know you had mentioned the possibility of MSDE approving virtual learning for snow days. So if you wanted
Yep.
to talk about that for a few seconds.
Sure. So obviously everybody has been very concerned that we've used up all of our inclement weather days, and nobody wants to add days in June. Any teacher will tell you days in June are pretty much useless for learning. So two things. We, as is typical, will be applying for a waiver for those days we've already acquired. We have no idea if MSDE will give them to us, but that's the plan. There was a lot of concern these last couple of days that we had off, which were past our 3 scheduled days, because there were a couple of other counties that decided to go virtual and count them. That was, quite frankly, a gamble on their part that MSD would ultimately let them count those as learning days, because we had asked very specifically, if we go virtual, can we count that as a day of instruction, and have been told no. So we did not do it. As of last Thursday, MSDE released a statement that each school system has to develop a plan for how they will go virtual on an inclement weather day. And they have to put that plan out to the public. The public can comment. They then have to get it approved by their board. Once it's approved by the board, it can go to MSDE, and then MSDE has to approve it. And so we're in that process right now. I think it may be put out to the public possibly tomorrow for comment. It's fairly straightforward, I think. And if it's all approved, then we will have the option of, as I said, going virtual on an inclement weather day. I think generally the sense is the extra ones, right? We have 3 built into the system. We're happy to give the kids, everybody needs a day periodically of snow and fun and just a break. But it's really about the extra days. And so assuming our plan, we go through all that process and our plan gets approved by MSDE, then we will be able to do that. By that time, we probably won't have any more snow days this year, but anyway, we will have had that approved. I wanted to say there was something, I believe at our next meeting next Wednesday, I also saw on your agenda, school start times. I think we're going to be updated on that at the next board meeting. So for those who are interested, you can check that out when that comes. And also just quickly an update, a reminder to folks on where we are and how we're functioning. You may have been seeing some of our, thus far, I think it's almost all elementary schools that several of which have had to go virtual based on determinations by the health department. So if there's an outbreak, that is a very technical medical term in public health. The public health department determines if we've reached a point where a school has to be shut down and goes virtual. The schools can, the virtual part is 5 days, which includes weekends, which has actually been a huge help, because in most cases, most schools have only gone virtual 2 to 3 days and then a weekend, and then they're back in school. Fortunately, I think case rates are starting, have been going down. So I'm hoping we'll see fewer of those. But that's the status. The only other way schools can be closed is if it's for operational reasons, if we don't have enough adults in the building, those kinds of things. And if there are any, just so you know, the process, because we report our cases, every case directly to the health department. The health department is tracking them. We see what the percentages are starting to look like in certain schools. So it's not like we suddenly wake up and it's 5% and the health department just alerts us. We sort of know where that's headed. So there are teams that are being deployed to the schools that look like they're headed that way, which include subs to take over teachers' classes and time for each teacher to come and work with that team with whatever they need to do to be ready to switch over to virtual if that school has to switch over to virtual. So the teachers are being given that time and that support ahead of that change. So, you know, it's not like the teachers find out 3 o'clock one afternoon that the next day they have to go virtual and are kind of left on their own. There's work done for each teacher in the building leading up to what looks like that tipping point, if we're reaching that tipping point. So, you know, those are some of the processes in place that have been in place to ensure that people are supported moving over to that. So that's where we are with that. I think those are the things that were sort of top of the list. I don't know if you have other areas you want to ask about.
Odessa, you had your hand up. All right, Jess, do you want to ask your question and then we'll come back to Odessa?
Sure. I was wondering, I mean, as everyone saw, when Montgomery County had a problem with transportation a few weeks ago because of COVID numbers and they couldn't get enough drivers, they were able to bring in the National Guard. And meanwhile, we are on week, I don't know, 3,897 of not having transportation for a number of our students. I mean, obviously, I know it's not that many weeks. And I'm just wondering what could be done. Has anyone looked into the National Guard, like Montgomery County? Or
so my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Montgomery County asked and were told no, they couldn't have the National Guard.
No, they had them.
Because we asked and we were told no.
No, they had them come in and
because we early on, when this started, that was one of the first things that we went to the governor's office about and tried to get, and we're told no, absolutely not.
Well, I mean, now it's almost the second semester and we have students who have consistently not had transportation to school. And I understand that the only people who are required to have transportation are those who have special education needs, but it's also a number of our special education parents our special education students are not getting transportation on a daily basis and are non-special education. And I understand at the beginning it was hard, and I understand at the beginning we were hoping to get drivers, but I'm trying to understand why the board does not seem to be more focused and more trying to get the superintendent to do something, because he doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. Money is great, but if there aren't drivers there, you can put as much money as you want out there. But if there aren't drivers there, the money won't help, right? We have to have so then we have to look at the bus routes. We have to go to Prismatic and say, you have our entire system. What can you do to reroute buses? What can you do to put people to get our kids to school? Because this is now 2 quarters, a full semester of school where kids aren't going to school. And I don't see any, when I watch every single Board of Ed meeting, I don't see anyone showing any concern, to be honest. Their questions are asked, but there's not the concern. And these are kids who can't get to school and are missing school because of a bus system problem that is now, at the beginning, it was the bus company's problem, but it's no longer the bus company's problem. This is Anne Arundel County Public Schools problem. And their kids are missing school because of Anne Arundel County Public Schools decisions at this point.
Well, I will, first of all, to the first part of your question, because I very specifically, when that request came out from Montgomery County, I was like, well, why were we told no and they were told yes? And I was told no, they didn't get them. So I will go back and double check that.
It was on the news. I saw it on the news too, Janet. I mean, Jess.
Well, I saw that they requested them, right? That they requested the National Guard. So anyway, I will. We continue to have drivers moving into the pipeline. We're down to, in the Annapolis cluster, I think two buses that are still not covered, and I'm looking into right now switching those with other routes by the same contractor somewhere else so that we can just, I mean, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to take a bus away from somebody else, but we've had
Bear
people
the
who
pain.
haven't had buses all the way through. So that's the other thing we're looking at. But yes, we are actually filling more driver slots slowly but surely. But you know, as I said, I will go back and reload the guard thing because we tried it and we had a no. So,
But I'm not sure, I mean, at this point, I mean, if it's not the National Guard, then what can we do, right? We cannot have an
Well-
entire year where kids aren't getting, you know, I mean, at this point, I
Well,
feel
I
like we're
told you-
past having ideas. We have to enact changes, right? Like, I mean, there's too many kids in my neighborhood, in our community, who aren't going to school.
right. And I've told you what we're steadily hiring, and I'm looking into switching the routes of the kids who haven't had buses with people who
I guess,
have.
okay, so what is the time frame then? What's your goal time frame for that?
I'm
Would be the question.
probably, well, I've been getting I'm getting the final data on where we are right now. So we can sit down and get from that bus company, because it has to be within the same bus company. We can't switch routes between contractors, okay? Just because if they're going to hang on to their drivers, they can't do that. So now we're trying to see which ones they can switch and then set that up. But that's probably a week or two.
Odessa, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have your question?
Yeah, I was on mute. I'm sorry.
You know, Dr. Tobin, you know, it's been so stressful for everyone, I know, but especially for the teachers, and, you know, having to take over extra work, you know, because there's a shortage of substitute teachers, and a lot of them are being pulled, yanked here and yanked there and whatnot. And, you know, the school itself has just gone through a lot of changes. I wonder why Anne Arundel County didn't kind of like think about giving the teachers some bonuses or something, you know, some extra money to, you know, to just kind of like lift up the morale a little bit with the teachers. Anybody ever thought about them getting a bonus?
Yes, we've got some agreements on that. I think that will be put out publicly shortly. Yep. These things are a long
Okay,
process of negotiation. Yes. So,
All right. And not just the teachers, the whole school system, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, I thought I saw an article somewhere. I can't find in the paper. Is there because of this pandemic and the buses and all this kind of stuff, is enrollment down in the schools? I thought I saw an article somewhere
yeah,
about the enrollment.
it's down. We're just shy of 83 this year. I'm blank. I've got this massive budget folder sitting next to me. I'm blanking on the exact number. Yeah, the numbers are down slightly. But again, they're projected, you know, to go back up. We'll see what that looks like. Oh, the other thing I did want to thank you for reminding me of that, Ms. Ellis. Obviously we're in budget season right now, so we're going through all of that process. The board will vote on the budget at not the meeting February 2nd, but the meeting on February 16th, I think it is, the middle of the month. We have a very large budget this year because we are, you know, we're trying to make sure we're set up for the blueprint requirements that we have, which include significant increases to teacher salaries. But we feel very strongly that you have to include all the bargaining units. You can't just give a lot of money to one bargaining unit, not another. So I think the superintendent has proposed a 4% COLA for all of our units. And we also, because this is a priority, have a lot of mental health support positions and special education positions. And so those are some of the significant areas where we are trying to make sure that we have funding. So I think those are some of the biggest priorities right now. We also have a 10% raise for our contracted bus drivers. Again, for all the reasons that we know, we have to be able to function in the market. Oh, thank you. Somebody let me know. The Montgomery County request came from the county government, not the school board, for the National Guard. So if we can convince the county government to do that, maybe that would be a good idea. Because that was the missing piece. I couldn't figure out what the difference was. But in any case, so there are a lot of big chunks to the budget that I think could make a big difference, but are going to take a lot of positive convincing of the county council and the county executive to make sure that we keep those pieces in the budget. So I have just a couple of more minutes.
So I want to be respectful of your time. I know there's a lot of people with hands up, and I know we're not going to have time to get to everybody before Dr. Tobin needs to leave us. So does anybody want to take your hand down and make it easier?
Go ahead, Enid. Enid has.
Oh, yes. Enid hasn't gotten to ask a question yet. Enid.
Yes, Dr. Tobin, I was hearing a conversation about a bill that may be proposed for limiting the time of the meetings and getting a parliamentarian. Can you tell me your feelings on that?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is House Bill, I think it's 95. I think it's being brought by Delegate Bagnall. And it includes having the board elect a parliamentarian, having access to the county office of law as a resource, a requirement of no later than 10 p.m., I think, for meetings, if I'm remembering correctly. The board discussed it at the last meeting, voted to take a position opposing it. And the reasons that the board opposed it are, there's some specifics and there's general. I think one of the bigger specific problems is that, for example, it ties us to the county office of law, and we are not a county agency, we're a state agency, and that's a problem because we report to MSDE, right? Even though we oversee the county schools. The more general problem is it's so prescriptive. And I think the general sense among the board was that it does not give an elected body the autonomy that an elected body needs to function. I think there were also concerns voiced by a number of members that some of the problems on the board that people are concerned about are a direct result of the way the General Assembly set up the transition from appointed to elected. And we also have a situation that the General Assembly has set up that means the entire board will turn over at the same time, which is for any board not a very good way to operate, quite frankly. And so I think there was, frankly, in that discussion, a lot of frustration about being told by these other bodies who routinely meet very late at night that, you know, somehow we can't police ourselves and make our own decisions. There was also, I think, some fairly frank discussion there that we fully recognized as a board we need to do a lot better in managing ourselves, quite frankly. I think you know, as I've been tracking it, our meetings are getting a little less outrageously long. To be fair, there was the transition. There was also COVID, quite frankly, which just changed a lot of things. But I think we're headed in the right direction. The issue of a parliamentarian, that's just not typical for a board this size, quite frankly. You have a parliamentarian for a much bigger body. We have a structure. We have our board attorney there. The president, to some extent, keeps things going in terms of parliamentary procedure. But, you know, speaking for myself, if I'm confused or I think we have I ask it. You know, we move forward and we figure it out to make sure that we're getting it right. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the conversation was, and I think what led to the vote to oppose that bill.
Thank you. I know you need to go. Odessa still has her hand up, but if you need to go, we understand.
I can take another minute, Ms. Ellis, if you have another question.
No, I'm sorry. I should have lowered my hand. I'm sorry. No more.
I just had the quick question.
Go.
I had the quick question of the
Sure.
priorities of the community ambassadors, the bilingual facilitators, those particular to the Annapolis cluster a little bit more. How are we looking for the budget?
We've got quite a bit of money in there for, I think we've kept the community ambassadors pretty much the same, but we've got quite a bit of money for ESOL and translators and all of that, because that's just demographics, right? We know the need continues to grow. So yes, I mean, if you do look through the budget it's on, I mean, you might not want to look through the whole budget, but the summaries are on the website and so forth. And I think it's really important, if you're interested in this, to take a look at that and get a sense of where the priorities are. I think they're good, frankly, for the most part, very good priorities. And I think this is a budget worth really fighting for, in my view.
But
so
the problem with the community ambassadors is that they don't have any benefits.
Well, I mean, we constantly are balancing. We've got, I think, our substitute pay, we're trying to put up a certain amount. We're trying to put up TSA pay. We're trying to put all of these things. And, you're always kind of trying to get where you can go. As of now, the community ambassadors, we haven't moved over to, that would require making really a different category for that position. And I'm not sure we're in a position to do that at this point, given the various priorities we have to balance. Because you have to understand, we're facing Blueprint, which has requirements, but we're also facing, the federal monies that we used for things, those monies are sunsetting. So we've got all these Chromebooks, for example, that we purchased with federal funds, but now we have to maintain them and we have to replace them. And that's going to have to come out of our budget. So, these are the things that, as you move forward, and I think most people think it's a good idea that we're a 1-to-1 district at this point, but there's a cost to that moving forward. So, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know where to find me, Laura. I will email you the link information for the RFP so you can distribute it. Sorry, I have to leave everybody, but you all know where to find me. So you can always ask additional questions as they come up.
Can I just jump one thing when you're looking at the transportation stuff regarding the special education families, because the transportation, particularly if those students, their routine is disrupted on a regular basis. If
Right.
that could be a priority of looking at because that's generally not a whole bus, but an individual
Correct.
thing, maybe something could be done and made a priority to get those students to where they need to go.
And we also have in our budget, that reminds me, Jess, anticipating this new legislation, the regulations coming out of it, we're purchasing several vans. We've got that, so we can use that for specific categories, including in some cases special ed, which will free up buses and bus drivers with those CDL licenses so, that's also part of what we're trying to do moving forward. But I hear what you're saying about the special ed students routine, and that has been horribly disrupted for many families this year, and it's been very, very difficult, I'm aware. So, okay.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming
Thank you.
and taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us.
Sure, always. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. All right. All right. So next on our agenda, we have committee updates. We are just past 7 o'clock. So in the interest of time saving, if you have a committee that you would like to give a report for, put your hand up. Otherwise, we'll just sort of skim along. I know we do have the charter school discussion on the agenda under unfinished business, but if you'd rather tackle that, I know that's also been, we have a committee for that as well. If you'd rather address that now, we can do that as well. Janet?
I just want to let people know under the career placement pipeline thing for the high schools, our phenomenal change engineering program at Annapolis High School, our coordinator, Becky Berhogan, has put together a presentation on the entrepreneurship program that is in conjunction with Anne Arundel Community College, where our junior and senior students in high school can take college level credits at a greatly reduced discount and work toward a certificate program in entrepreneurship. And they're taking, business finances and marketing and all sorts of things to help them launch businesses or be, a better, more appealing business hire. So those presentations, if I sent them around by email to the commission members, if you could distribute those widely within Annapolis so that we have as many parents and students aware of that, far prior to junior year, so they can plan for that. The presentations are in English and in Spanish. So look for that great stuff from our change engineering program at Annapolis High. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an amazing program, and it's a wonderful opportunity for students here in Annapolis.
Janet, is that the one where people were invited to come in and do like interview prep with students? I know there was a couple years pre-COVID where business people in the community were invited to come in and sit down and interview students and do interviews. Is that part of that, or is that something else?
Yes. So the change engineering program is really a leadership program. And part of that is the mock interviews that they get community members to be involved in, and all those business skills that we want to have our students ready for. Yes.
I had somebody who did the interviews previously and really enjoyed doing that. And they were just asking me the other day whether that was going to get started up again and whether that was going to be allowed under COVID. So if that's being started up again, if we could get that information out, that would be great.
I will find out about that from Ms. Hogan and disseminate that once I find out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other committee reports?
Just in terms of transportation, we've been putting together a lot of information and preparing to put together a meeting and see what can be done on a citywide, on a community-wide basis to help the problems with transportation in the city, because they seem to be switching. So buses that weren't getting service before are now getting service, but now there's new buses that are not getting service, and they're hitting some of the neighborhoods where transportation is really desperately needed. So just trying to keep on track of that and get some things going.
Also for transportation, Dr. Tobin reminded us that the next board meeting is at the February 3rd meeting. February 3rd, February 2nd.
I think you're stealing my thunder. She said the next board meeting is when they would get the updated school start times.
Yes, yes.
So yes, for the school
So
start.
go ahead. Thunder
Yes,
away.
we will get an update from them from Prismatic on the. She said they would get an update from Prismatic on the routes and the implementation of that, and hopefully at that point they will have specific school start times. I know that's been a question. A lot of some of the schools they give sort of a range. Elementary schools will start in this window, and a lot of families are trying to line up childcare and things for the fall, so they need to know specific school start times so they can plan in advance.
Laura, is that a daytime meeting or an evening meeting?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look at the calendar here. In the meantime, Odessa, you've got.
Yeah, the one thing that this pandemic has done is pull the covers off of a lot of problems that we had. For one thing, like substitute teachers, bus drivers, they mostly have been senior citizens. I'm a senior citizen. I was a substitute teacher. They need to start now. I mean, we need a lot of reforms. I heard Dr. Tobin talk about the blueprint and everything. I'm not sure if that blueprint is going to be the answer, but we need to really seriously look at the way that we're teaching our kids and the education in this country. For like I say, bus drivers, seniors, substitute teachers, mostly seniors. We got to start looking at things from a whole new perspective. So I'm just saying that I'm bending a little bit and everything because it seems like we just can't get up to par, up to the 21st or 22nd century on the way we view things in this country. I mean, bus drivers shouldn't have to be seniors. Why can't we train these kids enough to pass the test, to get the CDL license? And back in the day, during days of segregation, bus drivers were teenage kids driving the buses, So we just need to try to, look at things in a different perspective. And I hope this commission can kind of like start pushing the board to try to do things differently. That's all I have to say.
Odessa, I think you're exactly right. I think a lot of the shortages that we have, substitute teachers, teaching assistants, are things that we've talked in the past about. One of the things I know I'd heard talk at one point about possibly having a magnet program for teachers, to encourage students who want to go into the teaching field. And I think something like that. You're right. We have needs, but we also have folks who could fill those who need employment here especially within the city of Annapolis. And I think that's a really good idea that we should follow up on. How can we help our students, for example? Could we do something with our high school seniors to help them, pass the CDL exam so that they could then take on a job as a bus driver?
Is CDL something that's offered at either the CATS or Anne Arundel Community College? Does anyone know?
I don't believe it's offered at the CAT,
but the
possibly.
Anne Arundel Community Workforce Development Corporation has been putting on workshops for CDL, earn your CDL license. I know that is a priority program.
And I just want to circle back to the next board meeting is Wednesday, February 2nd, and the public session starts at noon. So that's when we'll be getting an update on the school start times and the other issues that Dr. Tobin mentioned. So any other committee reports? No. All right, moving on to unfinished business. We have first on there, charter school discussion. Jeff, would you like to tackle that?
Yeah, sure. At our last meeting last month, I brought up the fact that the Bloomberg Foundation had announced that they were making a $750 million grant to seed new charter schools around the country. I thought that was a great opportunity to kickstart this discussion that we've been having on and off for the past few years about perhaps seeing if we can find a corpus of people who are interested in starting one here, aimed especially at correcting some of the imbalances in demographic performance that we've seen through the years. So it took several weeks to get in touch with Bloomberg, and unfortunately, the information that I've got is that they aren't going to be accepting applications from interested parties around the country, but rather they're going to pick the ones from some existing relationships. So sadly, I think that's a dead end. I personally still think that this is a worthy goal to pursue, but with my time expiring on the commission, I'm going to turn this back over to the remaining members to see if somebody else wants to take the lead. I personally believe that it needs to be from somebody in this group here. I had previously sent out a meeting invitation for a virtual meeting this coming Monday, the 31st at 7 p.m. For people who might be interested in exploring this idea. I'm going to go ahead and show up at that meeting in the event that email got circulated. And if there's an interest, we'll talk through the information that's up on the AACPS website about the long, detailed process of applying for a charter school. So let me pause there and see what kind of feedback or thoughts you all may have.
I wanted to say thank you for doing the research. It's disappointing to hear that Bloomberg is doing that. Again, I mean, as I've always felt, I don't know if I don't know if a full charter school is the right thing, or a gap year charter program, something that really helps those kids, as we've talked about, the 5th going into 6th and the 8th going into 9th type of program. But I definitely think there's obviously a need for something. We need to get our kids caught up, and we need to do it sooner than later. So.
Or whether it's an expansion of the CAT program and the capacity at CAT program, and maybe new buildings. Some talked about across from Annapolis High to expand the CAT program. However, that could function.
Or better interaction with the workforce development program at the community college. So perhaps by providing some transportation for students to leave, finish classes at AHS and then go up there in the afternoon for one of those programs, similar to how we do with the CAP programs now. Mm-hmm. Odessa, you've had your hand up. You're still on mute, Odessa.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Jeff, for that information. So, Jeff, did you say that you sent an invitation out about a meeting on Monday to different people, or?
Yeah, I sent out an email invitation, I think, to this meeting group. I'll send out the address again via chat if it's available here to everyone. I'll send it out to email. Feel free to circulate it. I don't anticipate a big crowd, Odessa. With no monies available from Bloomberg to seed, professional grant writers or somebody to usher the manpower. I'm just not sanguine that this is going to go anywhere. But I'm happy to sit there and maybe there are some synergies and maybe we can do some matchmaking from people who might still be interested. So I'll send that invite out to again to this address, and feel free to circulate it. But again, my intent without the Bloomberg money is not to take the lead on this effort. Somebody else from within this group, I think, is going to have to step up and take it.
But
Jeff,
so who's sharing the meeting on Monday?
I'll chair the meeting on Monday. This will be outside of the AEC's purview.
Oh.
I'll be leading it as a private citizen.
Jeff,
Thank you.
One thing that came up last week was the new development that's going in at where USI used to be, the AT&T site, and the large
Right.
number of apartments. And I understand that that's part of the town center program. And they're using the common refrain, well, it's 2-bedroom apartments, so there won't be kids there. Which anyone who looks at a large number of the 2-bedroom apartments that are in Annapolis right now knows that that's not the case, at least in Annapolis. But, not too long ago, when a big development was going in a different part of our county, they were able to leverage that and work with the developer to use that for a new high school or a refurbished high school. And given where we are in terms of capacity at Annapolis High School, plus other schools within Annapolis, I wonder if that's maybe something that we need to be looking at, or just, discussing or seeing if there's any way, there that we can be working with the developers in the county and the school system to try to encourage, we are at capacity we are over capacity at Annapolis High School, and we're almost over capacity at Mills Parole, and everything else is getting tight. So, maybe that's something that we need to explore.
Jess, I think you're onto something here. We saw previously with the Monarch Elementary School here that we were able to get that thing funded within 18 months. There's absolutely no way that you're going to stick build a new school here within 15 years, given our capital expenditure backlog. So, if there's a will from the city here to investigate some of these, and the county to investigate some of these public-private partnerships, I think that's a wonderful idea, to see if you could seed a new facility here along the Monarch model, or perhaps a charter model. I think there's something there to explore for sure.
I'm hoping to be able to make it on the 31st, so we can hopefully discuss it further then.
That used to be the old Nationwide, so I'm dating myself. I'm going back some years. Nationwide Insurance used to be there years ago.
Well, Jeff, thank you for setting up that meeting and for taking the lead on this. And hopefully we'll find some folks that are willing to follow through, because I agree, the school, our high school especially is at capacity, and we need to figure out some way of moving some of those kids out into other programs in whatever form they take.
Concur.
All right. The last thing we have in unfinished business is vaccination clinics. Very excited to announce we have 2 clinics coming up here in Annapolis. We have one coming up this coming Monday, January 31st, from 3 to 7 at Annapolis Middle School. And then we have another one coming up Sunday, February 6th, from 12 to 4 at Eastport United Methodist Church, which is where we had our last one in December. We had some other ones sort of planned in between, and we've had some issues with dates. The governor, we are working with the governor's task force for vaccine equity, and he pulled everybody from the task force to staff the new testing sites when the new testing sites came on board. But now they have managed to call up more National Guard and train them to administer the tests, so that the medical personnel can be pulled and returned to the vaccination clinics. So I'm very excited about both of those. They are open to, they will have both pediatric and adult doses. So kids and adults, both, if they're walk-in, no pre-registration required. You can get your first dose, your second dose, your booster. So please spread the word within the community. If you need a vaccine or you need a booster, come and see us, and all you have to do is walk in. We're trying to get the word out, especially within our community, because we know we have low vaccination rates at a lot of, especially our elementary schools, because those kids have only been recently eligible. And as well, we're finding at the middle schools, at least I've seen at Bates, that kids that were the middle schoolers that were in the 12 and older category that were vaccinated when that first became available in June and July are now at the sort of at the end of their 6 months of inoculation. And so those were a lot of the cases that we were seeing specifically at Bates, were kids who were vaccinated but had been vaccinated 6 months prior. So if you have a middle school student who received their vaccination in the summer, they're probably due for their booster now. So come on out and see us. And any questions about either of those?
What time was the Eastport one functioning?
The Monday one is from 3 to 7 at Annapolis Middle School. And then Sunday, February 6th is at Eastport United Methodist. And that one is from 12 to 4.
12 to 4. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the National Guard team that shows up is terrific. And they're pretty fast at getting folks in and out. So
Awesome.
hoping to get as many folks vaccinated as possible so that we can avoid shutting any more of our schools down.
And speaking of that, I did want to say that if you are looking for testing, the testing site at Bladen and Calvert is open every day from 8 until 2. It is super fast. We took Louis, one of my kids, in this week, and we were in and out. It took longer to register on the electronic form than it did to get through the whole testing. And we had his results within half an hour for the rapid test, which was great. And I don't know, I always question my ability to do my home rapid tests. I have them, but I am always worried, and then they also do a PCR there. They do a rapid and a PCR at the same time. So it's a great way to just easily, quickly get tested. It's all free. And there's also one at Anne Arundel Medical Center that is also free and easy. That one is PCR only though. So I just wanted to put that word out there. And while we're on medical subjects, the blood bank is really low on blood. And if you give blood this week, Krispy Kreme will give you a free dozen donuts. So go give blood and get vaccinated and get tested.
It's worth it right there.
Yes.
Jess, is the Bladen Street location also giving away tests?
Yes,
I
they
know.
also give away rapid tests and masks in the morning.
Masks
So
and 95 masks.
Great.
And
We are hopeful that the National Guard will be able to bring tests with them as well. So we may be able to hand out rapid tests as well at both of these upcoming vaccination clinics.
Mhm. I just want to thank Laura for her incredible grit and persistence in making these vaccination clinics happen.
I'm a woman on a mission.
She was on fire and had to jump incredible hurdles and rescheduling and permissions for buildings and a lot of coordination. And we really, really thank you for that.
And if you have a high school student who needs service hours, we're also looking for volunteers. So come and see us. You get some volunteer service hours. It's fun. We have a good time. It's, like I said, it's a great group, and it's for a really good cause. It's a good benefit for your community. So it's service hours. You can feel good about kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And
All right.
I have other new business. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jess.
I was just going to say, speaking of service hours that are fun, Laura and Alexa Waltz and I have been working together to have a joint Bates and Annapolis Middle School Cocoa Shack at Quiet Waters Park every Friday night from 5 until 9 and every Saturday from 3 until 9. We sell hot chocolate, cup of noodles, and snacks to all of the hungry ice skaters. It's been a really great fundraiser for both of the schools. It's been great to have families and kids from both of the schools connecting and working together. And so if you are going ice skating, or even if you're not, try to come ice skating at Quiet Waters Park and support the Cocoa Shack. And if you have kids who need service hours, I put it on the PTSA for AHI, but we definitely need volunteers. So if you have kids that need service hours, or parents that just want to hang out at the ice rink and watch their kids ice skate or hang out, please, it's on Bates and Annapolis and AHI PTSA web pages. So the sign up is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to go, so thank you for tonight, but I have to go, so.
Well, Kayla, it's good to see you. Thank you.
2 minutes.
Yep, Janet, go ahead.
Okay. I asked Jeff's forbearance for going over the time limit by 2 minutes, maybe 3, because I wanted to note his incredible contribution to the Annapolis Education Commission, and this being his last meeting. When I was brought into this organization, I don't know, 10 years ago or more. Jeff had it up and running and full steam ahead to coordinate, to communicate, to actually achieve real measurable actions for the Annapolis cluster. And that was such of his time and energy and dedication that I'm so thankful for. So thank you, Jeff. We'll miss you.
Jeff, yes, Jeff, we will
Thank you
miss
so
you
much.
very much. Thank you so much for all of your service and for all that you have done for education and for all the students in the Annapolis cluster. You've been a tireless volunteer. In addition to all of your other volunteering, I know you were my son's Cub Scout master for a while. So thank you for all that you have done for the students here. You will be very,
Jamie,
very
you
missed.
have big shoes to fill in Ward 2, that's for sure.
Huge shoes, huge.
No
Jamie,
pressure.
welcome-
Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome aboard. There's no better volunteer job than there is on this commission here. And it really has been a great honor to serve with all of you guys. I haven't always agreed with everything that you all have said, but I have respected all of your passion and your drive and your energy and your dedication for the kids of this city, and particularly the ones whose parents don't show up in venues like this. And we really need to continue to look out for them, because they're the ones who need us the most. So it's really been a great honor to work with you guys. And Jamie, you've got a great few years ahead of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, on that note, does anybody, I know Jeff's a tough act to follow, and we're all going to have a tough time following you, but does anybody have any other last words for the meeting this evening?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right.
A second.
Any objections? All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Jeff. Everybody. I know we'll still see you around. You can't quit us that easily.
Yes.
Annapolis is a small town. We'll see you on the sidelines, in the stands, or other places, at the PTA meetings, right? So
Absolutely.
thanks again, everybody.
Absolutely.